who needs Easter eggs and chocolate when you can have 36 GT cars around Oulton Park? Welcome everybody to race day for the Intelligent Money British GT Championship warm-up, or as we've been calling it over the course of the weekend, the Intelligent Money GT World Challenge Great Britain. Such is the quality of the entry. 18 GT3, 18 GT4 cars. It is a stunning entry. Qualifying took place for the two races that we have, the two 1 hour races for today on Saturday. In the sunshine today, it is cooler, it is overcast, there's a threat of rain, although depending on which weather app you look at, it's either going to be hitting us late afternoon or not at all. We'll wait and see. This is the warm-up, which won't affect the grid. It's not compulsory that the teams go out, but it's a last opportunity just to try and get over any dramas they may have had on Saturday, make sure all is well going into the first race, perhaps practice pit stops, practice pit entry. There's a lot of homework, a lot of admin that the teams can tick off during the course of this. David Addison is trackside along with Joe Osborne. We'll hear from Joe shortly. Down in the pit lane, however, let's say a chilly good morning to Bryn Lucas.
Yeah, thanks very much, Adders. Here we are. It is overcast, it is a bit cold, but I tell you what, our spirits are high. I'm here with Nick Fellows from Intelligent Money. Another 5 years that you have with the British GT. It seems to be a 5-year rolling deal, doesn't it, Nick?
We can never say no, so every 5 years we like to re-roll it and just make sure there's 5 years ahead. So yeah, 5 years sounds good to us.
What is it? What's the appeal for you guys and the link with the British GT?
Well, look, we've been involved now for 3 years, and every year it's just gone from strength to strength. So got a hats off to Lauren and the SRO team for the work they're doing behind the scenes every year. Got to look at the grid this year, it's packed. Got more champions and returning champions competing this year. Looking at the number of cars we've got out there, fast laps on Saturday, so it just seems to get stronger and stronger and better, so why wouldn't we want to stay involved? It's a great place to be.
You hinted some of the numbers there. In the 31st year of British GT, the 20th with SRO behind it all, 10 reigning champions or former champions out on the track as well. So many pros, 8 works drivers. The numbers are absolutely fantastic, and 36 cars, a full grid for the entire season.
Yeah, with rumours of additional people might pop into grids later in the season as well. We're out in Portimao for the first time, so it'd be great to get a new track in this season. So, as I say, it just seems to us to go from strength to strength year in and year out, gets more and more exciting. So, definitely something we want to remain involved in. It's awesome.
Well, I've just been told the reason it's 36 is a limit is that's the limit at Oulton Park anyway, because of the amount of numbers allowed on track itself. Looking down the grid, then, it's a bit nasty for me to do this, but what's your projection, maybe just for the season as opposed for just this weekend?
Well, who would bet against Loggy after last season and getting through? And you've got to look at the livery on his car this year, so if nothing else, I think his car looks the best, so let's see how he does this season. So I'll back Loggy for this season.
If it's based on the way the cars look, it's Ian Loggy. There you go. Let's see what happens. I'm not sure it's always going to be based on the way they look, but we shall find out as the cars head out onto the track.
Bryn, thanks very much. Yes, just going back to the numbers, it is a nice problem to have, isn't it, that there just isn't enough space on the track for any more, and the pit lane is such that the pit windows are going to have to be staggered, so there'll be a GT3 window and a GT4 window at different times of the race, otherwise it would just be too crowded. Now, good morning, Joe Osborne, who has been looking at this thinking, rather wish I was out on track, because Joe, not only in terms of the machinery is it a stunning entry, but so too in terms of the drivers that you would be up against.
Yeah, the competition is through the roof, probably the highest we've ever seen in British GT, and that's not just because I'm not in it. So no, there's going to be absolutely brilliant. I mean, 18 cars in both classes. Doesn't really matter where you look in that thing, the top 10 is just stacked up. And the interesting thing with Oulton Park, we know it's narrow, so the overtaking is naturally difficult, and that means the pros are going to have to work even harder to make their moves stick. And the AMs we've seen in the past sometimes get a little bit panicky, they feel like they're held up maybe by a slower car, and then we see desperation and lunges, and that is what I'm particularly excited for. And yes, this might only be warm-up, it doesn't change the effect, but the quirkiness of Oulton Park, obviously we need to let the churchgoers have their prayers in silence on a Sunday Easter. So none of these drivers did anything yesterday apart from mope around, overthink what's going to happen today. So I think it even builds the tension even more. So I'm absolutely buzzing for both races today.
Johnny Adam does get a bonus point for running the track. He put it on Strava, so we'll have to compare Johnny's on-foot lap with his fastest qualifying time from Saturday in due course. Right, green flag is waved, green light to go on. It's a 15-minute warm-up. We were saying this doesn't affect the grid. There is a lot of admin to get through, and also different temperatures now. So is there a little bit more to learn this morning than there would have been had we been in the same temperature zone as Saturday?
1,000,000%, and you've got other things that you're looking at. So probably priority list one is get your AM in. let's get that rust off. They've not been in the car for over 24 hours like I alluded to. So they need to warm up, because next time they're sat in the car after this session, it's lap 1, race 1. So they need to be fully on it. We've also had a few adjustments BOP-wise, and that's actually quite rare. We don't normally get it mid-weekend, but the organisers have decided to try and get it a little bit closer, and that obviously means some of the drivers are going to have differences, one of them being that Ian Loggy Mercedes that we've got on TV at the moment.
Yeah, the Mercedes, we'll come to the others in due course, have become 15 kilos heavier. Ian Loggy, as he was in the Gulf 12 Hours, or the car earlier on in the year, running in this livery for the Mercedes of 1996, 1997. It's inspired by the FIA GT livery, which then became a DTM livery, the D2 Telecom colour scheme. You'll find other retro liveries on the grid as well, from McLaren and GT4 Mercedes as well, but it's been a really nice touch, this, to run the car in this retro colour scheme, and other teams, as I say, are doing it. But the old CLK Mercedes from the GT1 era of GT racing ran in D2 colours, and so Ian Loggy, who switches teams for this year away from Ram Racing to 2Cs, keeps the colour scheme, and he's got Jules Gounon with him. Jules, again, though, can't do a full season. He will miss, I think, Portimao while he's racing in the IMSA Championship. So Phil Keane will be super sub that weekend. That is the Darren Lung, Dan Harper BMW. Dan Harper at the wheel of it, and we've got a drive-through penalty already for the Ed McDermott, Michael Broadhurst GT4 Mercedes for being released before it was invited to. The phraseology is GT4 released before invited, so that car went too soon. So a drive-through penalty which will slightly affect the plan for the morning. Just going back to the BOP, because it is significant, the Lamborghinis are now 10 kilos lighter, and the BMW that you're looking at is 10 kilos heavier. In GT4, the Ford Mustang has lost 15 kilos and also had 5 millimeters taken off the ride height, so lighter and lower. The BMW in GT4 has had a tweak to its engine map, and the McLaren, which we were saying on Saturday, the new McLaren Artura was going very well. Well, it's had just about everything plus the kitchen sink thrown at it. It's 10 kilos heavier, 5 millimeters higher at the front, 10 millimeters higher at the rear on the ride height, and an engine mapping change as well. So the McLaren is going to be a whole different car, really.
Yeah, definitely, especially for that car that we saw a second quicker than anyone. If it looks too good to be true, it is, right? And that's been proven very much by that BOP. So all the McLaren Artura GT4 teams will be getting a feel of this. If I was them, I would have actually left my delta time on the dash from qualifying. Yes, I don't have new tyres, different day, but it's just to see where I've lost at the most.
Sure.
I would say it's probably under braking, because you've got the extra weight, you've already got less power, so you'll be arriving slower. And then that ride height, 5-10 mil might not sound a lot, but suddenly the car's jacked up and it's wallowing around more. Do we need to stiffen the springs up? What do we need to do as a team to try and minimise those losses? So we've already on for an interesting day, but to have 6 BOP changes, it's really, the qualifying order is almost wrong now.
Well, yeah,
exactly. All those changes. Yeah. So what we're going to see is potentially a bit of concertinaing up in the middle.
Going back to retro liveries here, the Garage 59 McLaren with this sort of Gulf-inspired livery, Alexander West and Marvin Kirchhofer. This again takes you to FIA GT, 1997 era. That livery on the long-tail McLaren would have raced against the D2 livery on the Mercedes. So it's another nice link that you put the two liveries on track, yes, but they would have, in period, raced as contemporary colour schemes also, as I say, in the FIA GT days. That powder blue Gulf colour scheme that came onto the long-tail McLaren F1 GTR, rather than the deeper, darker blue that ran on the short tail that was the initial car for GT racing. It is a day where you need your anorak, I promise you. More McLarens, the Sky Tempesta car. It was a happy Chris Froggatt this morning after a pretty torrid season in the Mercedes. This is his car, Kevin Say at the wheel of it. An Oulton Park winner, remember, with Tom Onslow Cole going back to the end of 2020. First time at Oulton, and he won. It was quite a remarkable weekend for him, that. The Macanese driver, Kevin Say. And fastest at the moment is the number 72 Barwell Lamborghini of Will Tregurtha, ahead of the McLaren of Martin Plowman. Interesting that quite a few of the pros are being given driving duties this morning. But Ian Loggy getting the mileage in number 1, the reigning GT3 champion. He's gone 4th fastest. Michael O'Brien is top at the moment, 1:36.121. Jules Gounon is good to go. It may only be a practice pit stop, depending on when Ian Loggy is called in. Different teams have different plans, don't they, for a warm-up? It's certainly not about chasing a time, necessarily. Yeah, definitely not that. One thing I've seen interesting, the 2Cs car we're on board now with Loggy was actually very close to the rear of Cottingham. It was almost like they're planning the start of their race,
because starting in first and third respectively, potentially they may be looking that they're going to try and jump Kevin Say in the McLaren, and that's how they're going to run. We also saw the same from the Garage 59 McLarens. They were running nose to tail. So Oulton Park's hard to be fast around, but to race around and be fast is another thing. So it's almost like the teams are introducing the AMs to what it's going to be like to be bumper to bumper for the next hour. We see the dynamic of the pit stop. The cars coming at 45 degrees because there's not enough space to park parallel. They're pushed back, then they must leave immediately. They cannot push back, hold and then go. That will attract a penalty. And there is that minimum pit stop time. So again, this is the final time for the teams to check all their numbers, all the instrumentation is working correctly. The minimum pit stop time, you want to be as close as you can, but anything under, you attract a drive-through penalty, which is day done. So it is a real bittersweet how close to the wind you sail with that pit stop timing. And even the pit entry, we see the Beach Team Aston coming in, it's so tight, but the pit lane speed limit doesn't start to where he is now, right at the end of that Armco on the right-hand side, you can just see. So you can actually come as fast as you want through that first part. And I've had it fully locked up and you're like, don't hit the barrier, don't hit the barrier. One, because everyone can see you.
Yes.
But again, it's easy time as long as you don't crash. There's so many dynamics. So we see Jules Gounon getting ready to come in. He has to stay behind the white line. But Ian will come in here, can't undo his belts till he stops. Engine off, you see Jules run, door open, drag Ian out. He's done now, we don't need him. And then Jules will get in. Should be about 35 seconds to complete this driver change. So it's not a mad rush, but we've got a seat insert to come out. There's lots of factors to bear in mind here.
And as you say, it's not a mad rush because a GT3 pit stop line to line is 70. Even before for race 2 you put the success, in other words pit stop compensation times, into the mix as well, because the top 3 have longer stops for the subsequent race. So yeah, they have got the time, and then the onus is on the pit crew to make sure that the car crosses the pit exit line no more no less than 70 seconds worth of a pit stop. 70 seconds and a tenth is about right. Under by a tenth, as you say, it's a drive through, it's day done. Right, McLaren in GT4, this was very much the gun car on Saturday. It's a rather different car now with the weight, the ride height and the engine map changes.
Yeah, that looks 5 mil higher on the front end. I can spot that straight away, but it does actually look quite high. The amount of times you can see all the way underneath the car, again, that's just illustrating the ups and downs of Oulton Park, the nature of it. Falls down the hill here, had a bit of a slap on. He's holding it to the right, though, to come in the pit. So you can actually do that last corner as fast as you want. There's no blend line, really, on the pit entry, so you can attack it hard there. But, yeah, that was Jack Brown's chance, to get a feel of that car before they come in. We're seeing nearly all cars coming in. 6 minutes remaining. Definitely good to get both drivers cycled through the car as Jules Gounon is on his outlap. It's going to be interesting with that green Mercedes of Neary in front. I think that's going to be our car to watch today. It's in a competitive position and it's their local track. I think they're very much the cat amongst the pigeons.
Yeah, Sam Neary gets better and better season after season, and we know how determined his dad is, Richard Neary. And you're right, it is the local team. They come from Formby. Jules Gounon, in the meantime, then made his Oulton Park debut last year. Absolutely loved the place. He was runner-up in the first race, in the rather contentious and controversial second one. On the amended result, he was a winner, and would dearly love with Ian Logie to win the season opening race. The car is third on the grid. It's James Cottingham who's going to start on pole for the first of the 2 one-hour races today. Pit lane pretty busy at the moment as the teams watch on, and Sam Neary determined to try and score a good result out of the weekend. That car in this warm-up session is a long way back. In fact, it's not yet done a time. Richard Neary hasn't done a lap time, but it doesn't necessarily matter. As we keep saying, it's not about chasing a time. 72 here. Mark Sansom, Will Tregerfer's Lamborghini. Mark Sansom at the wheel of it. Now, that was off the road in FP2 on Saturday, and we thought, oh dear, this doesn't look good. It was buried in the Recticel barriers at Druids, and yet it reversed out and drove back. There was hardly a mark on it.
Yeah, I genuinely don't think they did anything. I spoke to the Barlow team, and it was no damage whatsoever. We also saw that with the Enduro car, Marcus Clotton, in qualifying, having its big off at Shell. It got pulled out and it drove back to the pits, and that was his shakedown complete basically for Monday. So it's amazing what these cars can do and the strength they've got now.
Absolutely. Right, Ian Loggie's car is on track. Jules Gounon is at the wheel of it. It's time, I think, we checked in with the reigning champion. Ian Loggie is with Bryn.
Well, Ian, you won it last year. So many attempts at winning. You finally got your hands on the title, and this year you come back with Jules Gounon, and when he can't race, you got Phil Keane. So it's not a bad backup driver, is it?
Yeah, it was a long time coming, but it was great to win it last year. This year's going to be a bit tougher. We've got big competition, a lot of factory drivers, and obviously I've got one of the best, if not the best in the world, and we've got Phil Keane filling in for Jules at Portimao, who's another excellent driver. And has won more British GT races than anyone. So yeah, I think we've got a strong squad. So it's a matter of doing what we did last year. Don't make any mistakes. Just get the job done every weekend.
These titles might be like buses. We'll see you later on, but good luck.
Cheers. Thank you.
Ian Loggy sheltering because we've now got spots of rain falling, so the session has got 4 more minutes. 1 or 2 might have to change their plans here. The rain, it's not raining, they are literally spots. It's certainly not going to change the track surface, but it's just something else for the drivers to have to think about. And Jules Gounon has done an absolute best and a personal best. Johnny Adam has gone the fastest in the sister 2Cs, the Anglo-Bahraini team's Mercedes, a 1:34.8, and Jules Gounon goes through to break the beam on a 1:34.2. 2 absolute bests. He's the lap record holder around here from last year on a 1:33. Lap records can only be set in the race. We'll see what he can do later on in the day.
Yeah, you can just see those specks of rain on the windscreen, can't you? And what you tend to find is the more confident drivers actually don't turn the windscreen wipers on. As soon as you do that, you've lost how much rain there's been. So as long as you can see, you'd rather leave it there and just see the build-up of it. When you see little specks like that, you know it's making 0 difference to the grip level. It's when it starts to bead and run up the windscreen, that's when you'll start to feel ABS, TC kicking in, that slight unedged feeling that you're losing grip a little bit. We go on board now with the McLaren Artura GT4. Let's see what their balance is like. Turning was really nice, coming in the box quite slowly. So my critique of that would actually be, this is your last chance to practice coming into the pits hot. So why are we coming in slow? I know they're early in the pit lane, but it hits the 40k, he's actually all the way down to 20, turning it in, and actually going all the way back to Parc Fermé. So because we've got so many cars and limited garages, their garage actually awning just down there to the front of them. So I'll take it all back. That's why I was going slowly. I was needing to attack the box. I wasn't doing a practice change. So I'm glad I've made myself look stupid already today.
Well, at least he's not on the A49. If it's an even bigger entry, it'd be real problems. Number 13 there is the Race Lab Ewan Hankey McLaren. He's at the wheel of it and shares with Lucky Carer, who has driven some fantastic cars over the years. Ferrari champion, he's raced Lamborghinis, he's raced in Carrera Cup GB, prolific racer, now switching to British GT. But Ewan Hankey is going to be the real star in that car, no question about it. And we'll see how his pace is in the respective stints. So he'll do stint 2 in race 1, and he'll be the start driver for the second 1-hour race of the day. 2 more minutes on the clock here at Oulton Park. And Ewan Hankey is pressing on, isn't he?
Yeah, it's been relatively uneventful, which isn't uncommon really, but as we see it go up the hill, so super slow-mo from the Britain chicane, the first chicane, there's a big sausage curb he's about to hit on the left, just missed it, so it wasn't too much air time. Got rid of the tyre stack now, and that's where you can see the mud, but look at that car. It was up in the air twice, once on the first hit, second on the bounce. Is he going to miss that curb? You can cut the curb there, but sometimes it spins the inside rear up, and obviously a loss of traction is a loss of speed. So yeah, that super slow-mo showing how well the damping of that car is working, and that was one of the upgrades on the new Evo kit. So all the McLarens are running the Evo, bar the Paddock Motorsport car. So it'll be interesting to see that dynamic, to have the split, because we've got 2 Lamborghinis of both the Evo 2.
Yes.
We've got 2 types of McLaren GT3 really, and that doesn't happen that often. The other time it happens is that car on screen, the ABBA Mercedes, is still the Gen 1 version rather than the Gen 2 that Ram and 2Cs are running. So they might sometimes look like the same car, but there are some differences. Kirchhoff are really hustling on here. I think most guys will be using their free practice 2 tyres, so these will be right at the end of their life, probably 250 kilometres or so on them, and that is really, as I said, getting to the end of their usable life.
And Marvin Kirchhofer is another of the factory drivers, the McLaren factory driver then, who was a single-seater star, wasn't he? Got as far as GP2, and then his career sort of took a slight deviation. He went the way of GT racing successfully. Tom Wrigley, Ginetta champion, Carrera Cup GB front runner, coming to British GT this year, sharing with Ian Goff. The flag is imminent, but when we get to the race, we'll hopefully be able to talk more about that car, because there's a good story attached to a charity element to the Race Labs entry. That's another of the McLaren Arturas, but all to do with men's mental health and raising awareness via haircuts. And there are pop-up barbers arriving in the paddock of British GT races, because it has been found that one of the best ways for men with mental health problems to talk is to their barbers, because as you sit there you chat about all sorts of things, and raising awareness through British GT this year is a very laudable cause. There's the checkered flag, or flags, because there's another one at the end of the pit straight. So the warm-up session at an end. Marvin Kirchhofer went fastest, by the way, at the end of that lap we saw him on. He did a 1:33.867, so take that, Jules. There's the Team Parker Racing Cayman GT4 RS, which certainly if it's a damp road, I think there are high hopes for the GT4 battle. But it really is absolutely wide open. People keep saying, who's your money on, who's going to win? Well, take a pin, take an entry list and put the two together. That's about as scientific as we can make it.
Yeah, and that's credit to the championship, one again with the quality, but that balance of performance we talk about, and that Porsche, like you alluded to, is the highest placed GT4 that hasn't had a Bop detriment change. Yeah. So I'd be quite smug if I was in that car. It looked pretty handy in both qualifying sessions. Team Parker know how to get a good result out of that car as well. So if I was sticking my pin, I would hover over their name a little bit longer to increase my chances of picking that one, basically, is what I'm saying at the moment. As we go to another retro livery there, the gold wheels are pretty special on them, to be fair. I think that's going to pick up quite nicely. And what will be interesting, the longer races, especially Donington, so hard on brakes, be interesting if they stay gold and the amount of brake dust is there, but I wouldn't want to be the trucky cleaning them after every stint, that's for sure.
Yeah, that was a Zaxby 1993 DTM livery. Joe Wheeler and Esme Hawkey in the Toro Verde GT Ginetta. Joe Wheeler brings the car in, and Esme Hawkey, watching all of this, is standing in the garage ready to talk to Bryn about a return to GT racing in the UK.
Well, Esme, it's great to see you in the championship. It's also great to see what a teammate you have as well. I mean, last season Joe was fantastic out on track. Now this season, hot favourites maybe?
I hope so. Yeah, we'll definitely be pushing for those podium positions, and yeah, quali went really well on Saturday. Joe got a bit unlucky with traffic, so P8 for race 1 and then P2 in class for race 2. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Obviously, weather conditions might be slightly different to what we had on Saturday, but I think it's going to be an interesting race.
Fantastic stuff, and the start of a brand new season is always quite an exciting time as well. Looking down the grid here, some pretty big cars and pretty big names as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's great to see some drivers from obviously some European championships as well, and yeah, I'm happy to be back on home soil this year, because obviously I was racing in DTM the last 2 years, so it's nice. I've not been back to Oulton Park for the last 3 years, so yeah, it's great to be back in the UK racing, and I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah, it's great to see you back. Good luck as well. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Cheers.
So Esme Hawkey, one to watch in GT4. Let's look at the results at the end of the warm-up session. Read into this what you will, but for the purposes of record, Marvin Kirchhoff the fastest, then by just over a 10 from Jules Gounon. Rob Bell, third, Ewan Hankey, fourth, Johnny Adam, fifth, Michael O'Brien, sixth, then Sandy Mitchell, seventh, Callum McLeod, eighth, Kevin Say, ninth, and Marcus Clatton rounding out the top 10. You have to go down to page 2 to find the best of the GT4 contingent, where Tom Wrigley and Ian Goff's McLaren was the fastest, ahead of the Freddie Tomlinson, Stuart Middleton, Ginetta, Charles Clark and Jack Brown in their McLaren. So even though there's been this BOP adjustment for the McLarens, first, third, fourth, still suggests that they are going to be the cars to beat. But the fascination is just building and building and building. Not only do we have a good grid, not only do we have a quality entry, not only do we have some BOP changes, but we've now got the weather perhaps limbering up to throw a curveball at the teams as well. Matt Cowley and Eric Evans Ford Mustang, the slowest, just behind the sister car of Will Moore and Matt Nicol-Jones, and those cars lighter than they were for qualifying. So a quick look at the highlights of the warm-up then for the Intelligent Money British GT Championship here at Oulton Park as the cars rumble their way down the pit lane. Ian Logie, the reigning champion, then in the 2Cs, Mercedes, one of those drivers pushing on early doors. Callum McLeod and Mike Price with the Greystone GT Mercedes running up the curb, coming out of Knickerbrook. And in super slow-mo, a look at the Jack Brown, Charles Clark McLaren. The super slow-mo shot, fantastic to watch, except for the engineers who wince every time they see what goes through their pride and joy. The Aston Miller, Josh Rowledge, McLaren, another one to watch within the GT4 battle. DTO certainly adding a big impact to GT4 this year. Kevin Say, a previous Oulton Park winner, looking good. He will start on the front row for the first race. In GT4, the Zach Meakin and Dan Vaughan, Porsche one to watch. Dan Vaughan, GT4 champion back in 2020, but he's not raced since, so he's filing off the rust. And Jules Gounon second to Marvin Kirchhoff at the end of the session.